What if a single phone call could expose the hidden biases in our society and change lives forever? In a world where quick judgments can lead to life-altering consequences, one moment of prejudice was all it took to spark a powerful chain of events. Today, we unravel a story of injustice, resilience, and a mother's unwavering love. A story that challenges us to confront the biases we often ignore. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you'll see why this isn't just their story, it's ours too. Every day, countless interactions occur that seem routine, ordinary, or even trivial. But sometimes, a single moment, a single choice, can spark events that ripple far beyond what we could ever imagine. Today we dive into a story that challenges us to question those moments. A story that begins in a peaceful park on an ordinary afternoon, but unravels into an extraordinary tale of prejudice, justice, and resilience. At its heart, this story forces us to confront a question many avoid. How often do we make judgments based on appearances? And what happens when those judgments collide with the truth? This isn't just a story about one family, one moment, or one mistake. It's about a much bigger issue that impacts all of us. It's about the assumptions we carry, often unknowingly, and how they shape our actions. It's about the power of standing up against those assumptions and the courage it takes to create change. Picture this, a sunny afternoon in a bustling park. A teenager sits quietly under an oak tree, enjoying the warmth of the day, waiting for his mother to pick him up. He's doing nothing wrong, yet someone nearby watches him with suspicion. That suspicion grows into action, a phone call to the police. But what unfolds next will challenge everything you think you know about prejudice, power, and justice. This isn't just another story of misunderstanding, it's a wake-up call, because when the police arrive, they find themselves facing a situation they never expected, and when the boy's mother arrives, a woman of authority and grace, everything changes. Why does this story matter? Because it shines a light on the biases that still exist in our world, the harm they cause, and the steps we can take to do better. It's a story that reminds us how important it is to question our assumptions, to look beyond the surface, and to treat each other with fairness and respect. As we unravel the details of this extraordinary moment, think about this. What would you have done? How do we create a world where these moments become rare instead of routine? Stay tuned to uncover the truth behind this life-changing event. And don't forget, your voice matters. Share your thoughts, your experiences, and your questions in the comments, because stories like these are about more than just watching. They are about starting a conversation. Brookhaven was a picturesque town where life moved at a comfortable pace. Its cobblestone streets were lined with family-owned shops, and its parks served as the heart of the community, offering a peaceful retreat for residents of all ages. Willow Grove Park, in particular, was beloved by many. Its sprawling green lawns, winding paths, and towering willow trees made it a favorite spot for picnics, afternoon strolls, and moments of quiet reflection. It was a place where families gathered, children played, and neighbors greeted each other with warm smiles. Despite its outward charm, Brookhaven was not without its flaws. Beneath the friendly greetings and community events, subtle tensions brewed. The town, like so many others, struggled with unspoken biases, assumptions that shaped interactions and decisions, often without conscious thought. It was a truth no one wanted to confront, but one that couldn't be ignored forever. 15-year-old Elliot Harris loved Willow Grove Park. For him, it was more than a public space. It was a sanctuary. An aspiring artist, Elliot often spent hours sketching beneath the park's iconic willow trees, capturing the beauty of nature in his notebook. That Saturday, after finishing his homework early, he decided to treat himself to an afternoon of sketching. With his sketch pad and pencil in hand, he found his favorite spot under a large willow tree and settled in. The gentle sway of the branches above him and the soft hum of distant conversations created the perfect backdrop for his creativity. Elliot's mother, Sophia Harris, had always encouraged his artistic pursuits. As the mayor of Brookhaven, Sophia was a trailblazer, a leader who had broken barriers and earned the respect of many. She was the town's first black mayor, a role she embraced with strength and grace. But her position also came with challenges. While she had supporters, there were those who viewed her with skepticism, resisting the changes she sought to bring. Still, Sophia remained unwavering in her commitment to creating a more inclusive and equitable community. For her, everything she did was motivated by her love for her son and her desire to ensure a brighter future for him. As Elliot sketched, completely engrossed in his work, he was unaware that someone nearby had taken notice of him. Marion Price, a longtime Brookhaven resident, sat on a nearby bench, her eyes fixed on the young boy under the tree. Marion was known for her watchful nature, often commenting on anything or anyone. She considered out of place. That afternoon her attention was drawn to Elliot. To her, he didn't look like he belonged. She couldn't explain why she felt that way, but the unease in her chest grew with each passing minute. Marion shifted on the bench, her thoughts racing. Why is he sitting there all alone, she wondered. What's he waiting for? She tried to dismiss her feelings, telling herself she was being paranoid, but her unease soon turned into suspicion. The longer she watched Elliot, the more certain she became that something wasn't right. Elliot, oblivious to Marion's growing discomfort, continued sketching. He had just finished outlining the curve of a tree branch when a shadow fell over his sketch pad. Looking up, he saw Marion standing in front of him, her arms crossed and her expression stern. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her tone sharp. Startled, Elliot hesitated for a moment before responding. "I'm drawing," he said, holding up his sketch pad as proof. "This is a family park," Marion said, her voice tinged with accusation. "You've been sitting here for a while. It doesn't look right." Confused, Elliot frowned. "I'm just waiting for my mom to pick me up," he explained, his voice calm but uncertain. "Well, I don't believe you," Marion snapped. "You need to leave, or I'll call the police." Elliot felt his chest tighten. He had done nothing wrong, yet here he was being confronted for simply existing in the park. His mother's advice about situations like this echoed in his mind. Stay calm, keep your hands visible, and never escalate. Taking a deep breath, he replied, "Ma'am, I'm not bothering anyone. I'm just sitting here." But Marion had already made up her mind. Reaching into her purse, She pulled out her phone and dialed 911 and dialed 911. "Hello?" she said, her voice steady. "I need to report a suspicious person in Willow Grove Park. There is a boy here who's been loitering for hours, and I'm concerned he might be up to something." Elliot sat frozen, his heart pounding as he listened to Marion describe him to the dispatcher. Suspicious? Up to something? He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He grabbed his phone and quickly sent a text to his mother. "Mom, can you come to the park? There's a problem." Sophia was in her office at City Hall when the message came through. Reading her son's text, she immediately knew something was wrong. Elliot rarely texted her like this, and when he did, it was serious. Without hesitation, she grabbed her keys and left her office, her mind racing with worry. As a mother, she had always known this day might come, but that didn't make it any easier. Meanwhile, at the park, the sound of sirens shattered the quiet afternoon. 2 police cruisers pulled up, their lights flashing red and blue. Elliot remained seated under the tree, his sketchpad still in his lap, as 2 officers stepped out of their vehicles. Marion waved them over, her face filled with self-righteous determination. "That's him," she said, pointing at Elliot. "He's been sitting here for hours. I told him to leave, but he refused. I'm worried he's here to cause trouble." One of the officers approached Elliot, his expression neutral but firm. "What's your name, son?" he asked. "Elliot Harris," Elliot replied, his voice steady despite the fear bubbling inside him. "Do you have any ID?" the officer asked. "No, sir," Elliot said. "I'm only 15. The officer frowned. "What are you doing here?" "I'm waiting for my mom to pick me up," Elliot explained, keeping his tone calm but feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. The officers exchanged a glance before one of them turned back to Marion. "You said he's been loitering?" the officer asked. "Yes," Marion replied. "And he wouldn't leave when I asked. I didn't know if he was planning something." Before the officer could respond, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. The door opened, and Sophia stepped out. Dressed in her usual professional attire, she exuded authority as she walked toward the group. The crowd that had begun to gather parted to let her through, their whispers growing louder as they recognized the mayor. "What's going on here?" Sophia asked, her voice calm but commanding. The officer nearest to her cleared his throat. "Mayor Harris, we received a call about a suspicious individual. We were just following up." Sophia's gaze moved to Elliot, who stood silently with his sketchpad clutched tightly in his hands. Her eyes then shifted to Marion, who now looked visibly uncomfortable. "Suspicious," Sophia repeated, her tone sharp. "What exactly made my son suspicious? Was it his behavior, or was it something else?" Marion stammered, I didn't know he was your son." Sophia's expression didn't waver. "And if he weren't my son, would that have made a difference?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. The officer shifted uncomfortably, and Marion's face turned red. In that moment, the quiet biases that had lingered beneath Brookhaven's surface were laid bare for all to see. Sophia Harris's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as she drove away from Willow Grove Park, her son Elliot sitting quietly beside her. The SUV was filled with an oppressive silence. broken only by the faint hum of the engine. Elliot stared out the window, clutching his sketch pad in his lap. His normally calm expression was distressed, with a mix of confusion and frustration. "Mom," he finally said, his voice quiet, "what would have happened if you hadn't shown up?" Sophia glanced at him, her chest tightening. She didn't have an answer that would make him feel better, but she couldn't ignore the truth. "It's hard to say," she admitted, her voice soft. "But I didn't want to find out." Elliot nodded, but the tension in his shoulders didn't ease. "She called the police on me just for sitting there. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't bothering anyone. Why did she do that?" Sophia exhaled deeply, carefully choosing her words. "Because sometimes people let their biases guide them. They don't even realize they're doing it, but that doesn't make it any less harmful. What happened today wasn't about you, Elliot. It was about her assumptions." "That's not fair," Elliot said, his voice rising slightly. "I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I'm the one who had to explain myself. Why do people like her get to decide who belongs and who doesn't?" Sophia reached over and placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice steady. "It's not fair," she agreed. "But that's why we keep fighting to change things. What happened today shouldn't have happened. And it's not okay. But you handled it with grace, Elliot. You stayed calm, and you didn't let it escalate. I'm proud of you for that." Elliot nodded, though the frustration in his expression remained. "I just wanted to draw," he said quietly. "But that's all I wanted to do." Sophia's heart ached at his words. She knew this experience would stay with him, shaping the way he saw the world. But she also knew they couldn't let it define him. "And you will," she said firmly. "Don't let one person's ignorance take that away from you." Over the next few days, the incident at Willow Grove Park quickly became the talk of the town. Videos of the confrontation circulated on social media, sparking heated debates among Brookhaven's residents. Some praised Sophia for standing up for her son, calling her a symbol of strength and leadership. Others, however, accused her of politicizing the situation, arguing that Marion Price was simply a concerned citizen trying to protect the park. Marion, meanwhile, found herself at the center of a storm she hadn't anticipated. She avoided leaving her house, unwilling to face the growing scrutiny. Some of her friends tried to defend her actions, saying she had acted out of caution, not malice. But others were less forgiving, pointing out the harm her assumptions had caused. The once quiet, uneventful town of Brookhaven was now divided, its residents forced to confront uncomfortable truths about bias and privilege. At school, Elliot struggled to navigate his new reality. Some of his classmates treated him like a hero, praising him for staying calm and composed during the ordeal. Others avoided him, unsure of what to say or how to act. Elliot tried to focus on his art, but the weight of the incident lingered. Everywhere he went, he felt the eyes of others on him, their whispers following him down the hallways. His best friend Jonah was one of the few people who didn't treat him any differently. One afternoon, as they sat on the bleachers after school, Jonah broke the silence. "How are you holding up?" he asked. Elliot shrugged, his gaze fixed on the ground. "I don't know. Everyone's talking about it, but no one really gets it." "I get it," Jonah said. "What she did was messed up. You didn't deserve that. Elliot managed a small smile. Thanks, Jonah. I just wish it didn't happen, I wish people didn't have to deal with stuff like this. Jonah agreed. But maybe what happened can change things. Your mom's doing a lot to make sure people talk about it. Elliot nodded, his friend's words offering a glimmer of hope. Maybe, he said quietly. I hope so. At City Hall, Sophia was working tirelessly to address the fallout from the incident. She held a press conference to address the situation, her voice steady and resolute as she spoke. What happened at Willow Grove Park was not an isolated incident, she said. It's a reflection of a larger issue that we as a society must confront. Bias, whether conscious or unconscious, shapes our interactions and our decisions. It's not enough to say we're inclusive. We have to actively work toward understanding and empathy. Her words resonated with many, but they also sparked resistance. Some residents called for Marion to issue a public apology, while others demanded she face legal consequences for filing what they considered a false report. The Brookhaven Police Department came under fire as well, with community members questioning their response to the situation and their handling of bias training. The pressure mounted as Sophia navigated the delicate balance between addressing the town's concerns and protecting her family's privacy. Late at night, after Elliot had gone to bed, she sat at her desk, sifting through emails and messages from residents. Some were supportive, thanking her for her leadership and encouraging her to continue fighting for change. Others were critical, accusing her of creating division and turning the town against itself. Sophia knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to keep moving forward. She reached out to community leaders, organizing a series of town hall meetings to discuss issues of bias and inclusion. She also began working with the police department to implement new training programs aimed at addressing unconscious bias and improving community relations. As the days turned into weeks, the tension in Brookhaven showed no signs of easing. Every step forward seemed to bring a new challenge, more debates, more pushback, and more questions about what change would really look like. Unbeknownst to Sophia and Elliot, this was only the beginning of their biggest challenge yet. The incident at Willow Grove Park had set off a chain reaction, and the true impact of that day was yet to be seen. At the next town hall meeting, the room was packed with residents eager to share their thoughts. Some spoke passionately about the need for change, while others expressed fear and skepticism about the proposed initiatives. One woman stood up, her voice trembling as she spoke. I've lived in this town my whole life, and I've never seen it so divided. I'm not saying what happened at the park was right, but we have to find a way to move forward without tearing each other apart. Sophia listened intently, her heart heavy with the weight of the town's struggles. When it was her turn to speak, she addressed the room with her usual calm authority. I understand the fear and uncertainty many of you are feeling, she said. Change is never easy and it often brings discomfort, but I believe in this town, and I believe we have the strength to face these challenges together. This isn't about pointing fingers or placing blame. It's about creating a community where everyone feels safe and valued. Her words were met with a mix of applause and quiet murmurs. As the meeting continued, it became clear that while the road ahead would be difficult, there was also a growing sense of hope. a belief that change, though slow and painful, was possible. Everything they had feared was now staring them in the face. Sophia Harris stood in the town hall meeting room, the weight of Brookhaven's simmering tensions pressing down on her shoulders. The air was charged, thick with anticipation and unease, as residents packed into every available space. The community, once content to let its unspoken biases remain in the shadows, now found itself thrust into a reckoning. Sophia had called the meeting to announce the town's new anti-bias training initiative for the police force and city officials. What should have been a step forward had instead become a battleground. The room buzzed with whispers, growing louder as Marion Price entered, flanked by two of her closest friends. Marion's face was pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. She had resisted every request for a public apology, but under mounting pressure she finally agreed to attend the meeting. Sophia locked eyes with her for a moment, neither woman blinking. Elliot sat near the front of the room, trying to disappear into his seat. He had begged his mother to let him stay home, but Sophia insisted he come. "This affects you as much as anyone else," she had said. "You need to see this through." The murmurs died down. As Sophia stepped up to the podium, her presence commanding the attention of the room, she began calmly, addressing the events that had brought them to this point. "We're here tonight because of what happened at Willow Grove Park," she said. "But more importantly, we're here because what happened isn't just about that one moment. It's about the way we see each other and the assumptions we make, assumptions that hurt not just individuals, but the entire community." Her words were measured, but the tension in the room was palpable. Some people nodded in agreement, while others crossed their arms, their expressions skeptical. Marion shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her gaze fixed on the floor. "And so," Sophia continued, "I'm introducing a mandatory anti-bias training program for all city employees and law enforcement. This isn't about pointing fingers. It's about ensuring that what happened to my son or anyone else never happens again." As soon as the words left her mouth, the room erupted. Some clapped and cheered, while others shouted in protest. "Why should we pay for someone else's mistakes?" a man in the back yelled. "This is going too far." Sophia raised her hand, calling for silence. "I understand that change can be uncomfortable," she said, "but discomfort is necessary if we want to grow. If we don't address these issues, we risk dividing this town even further." Marion suddenly stood, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. The room fell silent as she turned to face Sophia. "You think I'm the problem," she said, her voice shaking. "I was just trying to keep the park safe. I wasn't doing anything wrong." Sophia met her gaze, her voice calm but firm. "You weren't keeping the park safe, Marion. You were acting on a bias, one that could have had devastating consequences." Marion's face flushed. "I didn't know he was your son," she shouted. "And that's the point," Sophia replied. "It shouldn't matter whose son he is. No one should have to justify their presence in a public space because of how they look." The room was silent, the weight of Sophia's words settling over the crowd like a heavy blanket. Elliot watched his mother, his chest tightening with a mix of pride and anxiety. He had never seen her like this before, so fierce, so unyielding. Marian hesitated, her anger giving way to something else. Maybe I was wrong, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But I didn't mean any harm. I thought I was doing the right thing. Sophia stepped down from the podium and approached Marian, her voice softening. Marian, I believe you didn't mean harm, but intentions don't erase impact. What you did hurt my son. It hurt this community. And it's not enough to say you're sorry. We have to do better. Marian looked at Sophia, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I don't know how to fix this, she said. Sophia placed a hand on Marian's shoulder. You start by listening, by acknowledging the harm and committing to change. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the two women stood there facing each other. It was a moment of vulnerability, of reckoning, and it shifted something in the room. As the meeting continued, the tension began to ease. More residents stood to speak, sharing their own stories of bias and discrimination. One man, a local shop owner, recounted the times he had been followed in stores because of his skin color. A woman shared how our children had been treated differently in school because of their accents. The stories poured out, raw and unfiltered. And for the first time, Brookhaven began to confront the reality of its unspoken divisions. Elliot listened, his heart heavy but hopeful. For so long, he had felt like his experience was invisible, like no one understood what it was like to live under the weight of other people's assumptions. But now, as he heard the stories of his neighbors, he realized he wasn't alone. As the meeting came to a close, Sophia returned to the podium. This is just the beginning, she said. Change doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen without effort. But I believe in this community. I believe we can do better. And I believe that together we can create a Brookhaven where everyone feels they belong. The room erupted in applause, the sound filling the space with a sense of possibility. Marian, still standing near the back, wiped her eyes and nodded quietly. Later that evening, as Sophia and Elliot walked to their car, he turned to her. Do you think things will really change? He asked. Sophia looked at her son, her expression thoughtful. Change is never easy, Elliot, she said. But tonight, I saw something I haven't seen in a long time. People willing to listen, to share, to grow. That's how it starts. Elliot nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. For the first time since the incident at Willow Grove Park, he felt a glimmer of hope. Unbeknownst to them, that night marked a turning point for Brookhaven. The ripple effects of the meeting would continue to spread, challenging the town to confront its biases and build a more inclusive future. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be setbacks along the way, but the seeds of change had been planted. And as Elliot sat under the willow tree the next day, sketching the branches swaying in the breeze, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in weeks. He wasn't just drawing a tree. He was drawing a future, where everyone belonged. As the dust settled from the heated town hall meeting, the reality of what had happened began to sink in for everyone involved. Brookhaven, a town that had long prided itself on its idyllic charm, was finally confronting the unspoken biases that had festered beneath its surface. The incident at Willow Grove Park had ignited conversations, but it had also left the community raw, divided, and searching for a way forward. For Sophia Harris, the days following the meeting were a whirlwind of reflection and planning. She spent hours drafting a detailed proposal for the town's anti-bias training program, determined to turn the momentum of the meeting into actionable change. But it wasn't just about the policies. Sophia wanted to ensure that the community felt heard. She reached out to residents, inviting them to share their thoughts and concerns, even if they disagreed with her. One of those residents was Marion Price. Marion had been quiet since the town hall, keeping to herself as she processed everything that had unfolded. The weight of Sophia's words, "It shouldn't matter whose son he is," stuck with her, echoing in her mind during quiet moments. For years, Marion had seen herself as someone who did the right thing. But now, she couldn't ignore the harm her actions had caused, not just to Elliot and Sophia, but to the town as a whole. A few days after the meeting, Marion mustered the courage to visit Sophia's office. She knocked hesitantly, clutching her purse as if it could steady her nerves. When Sophia opened the door, her expression softened slightly, though her posture remained guarded. "Marion," she said, stepping aside to let her in, "what can I do for you?" Marion hesitated, then sighed deeply. "I wanted to talk," she said, "about everything." Sophia gestured for her to sit, and the two women settled into the office's small chairs. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Marion broke the silence. "I didn't realize how much harm I caused," she began, her voice trembling. "I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now that I wasn't. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry for what I did to Elliot and for the way I made you and your family feel." Sophia studied her, searching for sincerity. She could see the discomfort in Marion's posture, but also a genuine desire to take responsibility. "I appreciate you saying that," Sophia said carefully. "It's not easy to admit when you've been wrong. But Marion, this is bigger than just an apology. If we're going to move forward, we all have to commit to doing better. That means not just acknowledging bias, but actively working to overcome it." Marion nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I want to do that," she said. "I really do. I don't want to be the person who caused harm. I want to help fix it." The conversation, though difficult, marked a turning point for both women. Marion left Sophia's office feeling lighter, as if she had taken the first step toward redemption. For Sophia, the meeting was a reminder that change, while slow and often painful, was possible. Meanwhile, Elliot found himself grappling with his own emotions in the wake of the incident. He had always thought of Brookhaven as a safe place, a town where he could sit under a tree and draw without fear of being judged. But now, that sense of safety felt fragile, as if it could be taken away at any moment. At school, His classmates continued to treat him differently. Some offered words of support, while others kept their distance, unsure of what to say. Jonah remained his constant, always ready with a joke or a reassuring word. But even Jonah couldn't erase the weight Elliot carried. One afternoon, as Elliot sat under the willow tree with his sketchpad, he noticed a group of younger kids playing nearby. They laughed and chased each other, their voices carrying on the breeze. For a moment, Elliot watched them, a bittersweet smile tugging at his lips. He thought about how innocent they were, how they hadn't yet learned the weight of the world's judgments. He opened his sketchpad and began to draw them, capturing their laughter and energy in quick, fluid lines. It was the first time since the incident that he had felt truly inspired. As his pencil moved across the page, he felt a small sense of peace, proof that his love for art hadn't been extinguished by what had happened. The ripple effects of the town hall meeting continued to spread. Sophia's proposed anti-bias training program was approved by the town council, despite vocal opposition from a few residents. The program included workshops, guest speakers, and interactive sessions designed to challenge assumptions and foster empathy. Police officers and city employees attended the sessions, many of them surprised by the depth of their own unconscious biases. Sophia also worked with local schools to incorporate lessons on diversity and inclusion into the curriculum. She believed that change had to start with the younger generation, and she was determined to give them the tools to build a better future. The community, though still divided in some ways, began to show signs of healing. Town hall meetings became spaces for honest conversations, where residents could share their experiences and learn from one another. Local artists painted a mural in Willow Grove Park, depicting scenes of unity and belonging. The mural became a symbol of the town's journey, a reminder of the work they had done and the work that still lay ahead. Marian, true to her word, became an active participant in the town's efforts. She attended the anti-bias workshops, often sitting in the front row and taking meticulous notes. She also volunteered at community events, using her experiences to encourage others to confront their own assumptions. Though some were slow to forgive her, Marian was determined to prove that she had changed. For Elliot, life gradually returned to a new normal. He continued to draw, finding solace in his art, and using it as a way to process his emotions. One day, he showed his latest sketch to Sophia, a drawing of the willow tree, surrounded by children playing and laughing. "This is beautiful, Elliot," Sophia said, her voice filled with pride. "You've captured the spirit of the park perfectly." Elliot smiled, his eyes meeting hers. "It feels different now," he said. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe it's better." Sophia nodded, her heart swelling with hope. "It is better," she said, "because now it's not just about the park. It's about what it stands for." As the weeks turned into months, Brookhaven continued to evolve. The conversations sparked by the incident at Willow Grove Park didn't fade. They deepened, challenging the town to confront its flaws and strive for something better. For Sophia, Elliot, and the rest of the community, the journey wasn't over. But they had taken the first steps, and that was enough to keep them moving forward. Weeks turned into months, and Brookhaven found itself at a crossroads. The incident at Willow Grove Park had pulled the town into an intense period of self-reflection, forcing its residents to grapple with truths many had been content to ignore. For Sophia Harris, the journey had been both exhausting and transformative. As mayor, she had always believed in the power of community. But she now understood just how much work was needed to make that belief a reality. The anti-bias training programs she had fought for were in full swing. Police officers, teachers, city officials, and even volunteers from the community participated in workshops that challenged their assumptions and encouraged open dialogue. The sessions weren't easy. Many participants resisted at first, unwilling to confront the uncomfortable realities of their own biases. But, slowly, progress was being made. People began to listen, to share their stories, and to see the world through each other's eyes. One afternoon, Sophia visited one of the training sessions at the community center. She sat quietly in the back as a facilitator led a discussion about the impact of unconscious bias. A young officer stood up, his voice hesitant but sincere. "I didn't realize how often I've made snap judgments about people," he admitted. "This training has opened my eyes to how much harm those judgments can cause. I'm committed to doing better, not just as an officer, but as a person." Sophia felt a surge of hope at his words. It was moments like these that reminded her why she had fought so hard for change. Elliot, too, had started to find his footing again. The incident at the park had shaken his sense of safety, but it hadn't extinguished his passion for art. In fact, it had deepened it. His sketches, once focused on the serene beauty of nature, now carried a more profound meaning. He began to capture the faces and emotions of the people around him, using his art to tell stories of resilience, connection, and change. One day, as Elliot worked on a mural project at the community center, a small group of children gathered around him, watching in awe as he painted. One of them, a boy no older than 8, tugged on Elliot's sleeve. "Can you teach me how to draw like that?" he asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. Elliot smiled, handing the boy a spare brush. "Sure," he said. "Let's start with something simple." As he guided the boy's hand, Elliot felt a sense of purpose he hadn't known before. His art wasn't just about him anymore. It was about inspiring others, about creating something that could bring people together. Marion Price, once the unwitting catalyst for the town's reckoning, had also begun to change. Her apology to Sophia had been a turning point, but it was only the beginning of her journey. She attended every anti-biased workshop she could. Slowly, she began to understand the depth of the harm her actions had caused. One evening, Marion visited Willow Grove Park. She sat on the same bench where she had first spotted Elliot months ago, the memory of that day still fresh in her mind. As she watched families play and laugh in the fading light, she felt a pang of regret, but also a glimmer of hope. She had made a mistake, a grave one, but she was determined to learn from it and to do better. The park itself had transformed in the wake of the incident. The mural that Elliot had helped design now stood proudly near the entrance, depicting scenes of unity and belonging. Beneath the vibrant colors, a plaque read, "This park is for everyone. May we always strive to create a community where all are welcome." Sophia often visited the park during her evening walks, taking a moment to reflect on how far they had come. The road ahead was still long, But the first steps had been taken, and those steps mattered. At the next town hall meeting, Sophia addressed the residents of Brookhaven with a renewed sense of purpose. "This story is a reminder that change doesn't come easily," she said, her voice steady. "But it's worth fighting for. What happened at Willow Grove Park was painful, but it also brought us together in ways we couldn't have imagined. It showed us our flaws, yes, but it also showed us our potential to grow." The crowd listened intently, their expressions a mix of reflection and determination. Among them was Marian, who nodded quietly, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "As we move forward," Sophia continued, "let's remember that this isn't about blame. It's about responsibility. It's about each of us taking the time to examine our own biases, to listen to each other, and to build a community where everyone feels they belong. Change starts with us, and I believe in Brookhaven's ability to be that change." The room erupted in applause, the sound filling the space with a sense of unity. For the first time in months, the divide in the town felt smaller, the path to healing clearer. As the meeting adjourned, Elliot approached Sophia, his sketchpad tucked under his arm. "You did great, Mom," he said, his voice filled with pride. "Ah." Sophia smiled, pulling him into a hug. "So did you," she said. Later that night, as they sat together in the living room, Elliot flipped through his sketchpad, showing Sophia his latest drawings. One sketch caught her eye, a drawing of the willow tree at the park, its branches reaching out as if to embrace the sky. Beneath it, Elliot had written a single word: hope. Sophia's eyes welled with tears as she looked at her son. "That's exactly what we're building," she said softly. "Hope, for you, for me, and for everyone in this town." The next morning the sun rose over Brookhaven, casting a warm glow over the town. At Willow Grove Park, children played beneath the willow tree, their laughter ringing out like a melody. Nearby, a group of teenagers worked on a new mural, their brushes moving in harmony. And on the bench where Marian had once sat, an elderly couple watched the scene unfold, their hands intertwined. The journey wasn't over, but Brookhaven was on its way. The incident at Willow Grove Park had been a turning point, a moment that forced the town to confront its flaws and take steps toward a better future. It was a reminder that progress is never easy, but it is always possible. And as Elliot sat under the willow tree, sketching the world around him, he felt a quiet sense of peace. The park, once a place of fear and misunderstanding, had become a symbol of resilience and hope. What would you have done in their shoes? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for staying with us through this powerful and thought-provoking journey. The story of Elliot and Sophia reminds us of the strength it takes to stand against bias and the courage it takes to fight for change. It's not just a story about one family. It's a reflection of the challenges we face as a society and the steps we can take to build a more inclusive and compassionate world. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Stories like these spark conversations, and conversations spark change. By sharing this video, you're helping to spread awareness about the importance of empathy, understanding, and standing up for what's right. What's your takeaway from this story? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections. Have you ever experienced or witnessed a situation like Elliot's? How did it impact you, and what did you learn from it? Your stories and insights matter, and they help create a community of support and learning for everyone. At the heart of this story is the reminder that change starts with us. Whether it's challenging our own assumptions, speaking up when we see injustice, or simply taking the time to listen to someone's experience, every action we take makes a difference. What small steps can you take today to help create a world where everyone feels safe and valued? If you're inspired by this story and want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. By doing so, you'll join a community of people who believe in the power of storytelling to drive change. We bring you real stories, real challenges, and real moments of transformation. Stories that inspire, educate, and empower. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. It's more than just a story. It's a conversation starter, a tool for education, and a reminder of the impact we can have when we work together. Let's keep the conversation going and continue to challenge ourselves and those around us to do better. Finally, we'd like to leave you with a question. What kind of world do you want to help create? Whether it's through small acts of kindness, standing up against injustice, or simply taking the time to reflect on your own biases, every choice you make shapes the world we live in. So, what will your choice be? Let us know in the comments. We can't wait to hear from you. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. Together, we can create a world where stories like Elliot's become the exception, not the norm. Let's keep pushing forward, one story at a time.